This is Josh. I'm the vocalist of the band Through These Eyes, and I'm making this video to support the event that the Speak Your Truth crew organization or whatever is putting on, and I'm very excited to be a part of this because mental health and the stigmas around it are something that is very important and something that is very personal to me, considering a lot of my own experience with mental health issues and mental health issues that I've dealt with my entire life with people that I grew up with, my family, my friends, my community, all different types of things. So I have some questions to answer that have been sent to me, starting with, how has heavy music and the community been helpful for you? Me, I've always been kind of especially in my school years, and I didn't quite a lot of communities where I fit in. And combined with a lot of childhood trauma, it made it very difficult for me to cope with a lot of things and, figure out myself and like where I stood in the world, where I belonged, and all that different type of stuff. And I started going to shows in my late teens. I honestly wish I would have went younger because I have so many friends that have so many crazy experiences from especially Baltimore, specifically related shows in the early 2010s and the 2000s. Bands like Stout and Next Step Up, things that I never really got to experience that I would have loved to experience. But I came into the community in around 2016, around the time that I really graduated high school. And I would say like my first hardcore show was Hatebreed at Soundstage, and that was definitely an introduction for me. There was a lot of metal stuff going on as well, which I also love, but it's probably one of my first hardcore shows, but it was a big one. But I felt a lot of belonging in the supportive community that I found through metal and hardcore shows. I kind of felt like I found somewhere where I belonged finally, somewhere where people were talking about things that I felt like mattered. Bands were singing about things that I felt like mattered. Sometimes it was just, and sometimes, as always, it is just crazy shit when it becomes, metal because of different themes. But a lot of people in metal and hardcore specifically sing about a lot of community related things, a lot of things surrounding a lot of things around the ideas of mental health and the stigmas related to it, the struggles that a lot of band members have gone through, and a lot of things that you can really personally relate with. There's a lot of different bands that I can point out specifically and people that have helped me, but I would point out specifically the band Prison and their vocalist Johnny Crowder, and the band Kayanashi and their vocalist Peter Rono. These two bands have spoken a lot about different mental health things in different ways. Prison in a very direct and open and transparent way that has discussed a lot of situations that the vocalist Johnny Crowder has experienced and been through. Very, very deep, touching, and harsh and tragic and traumatic realities displayed through music that, show people that anybody in any position can suffer really intense struggle, and create a platform that is relatable, for other people to realize that they aren't alone in their struggles, that they can get better from their struggles, or specifically that in his case, you can live your life with your struggles and still accomplish great things and help people that are going through similar things, because he doesn't preach a message of, you do a certain thing and you will get better. Some of his stuff is very based around the idea that life is very difficult, and sometimes you are just going to have lifelong struggles that you have to figure out the best ways to get through. And it's very good to have people that give that perspective of what life really can be like, because for people like me, especially when I was younger, I definitely felt very alone in my struggle. I definitely felt like maybe there wasn't a lot of people that were feeling the way that I felt, or maybe I was too different from society at large, or whatever the case may be. It's very good to have that stuff. And with Kei Anashi, Peter often writes things that are very thematic and story related, builds stories through characters that deal with their own internal struggles and conflicts and relationships. And through the telling of those stories, some of them laced with things that he's been through and experienced, you begin to understand even more about the things that people deal with in the human experience. There's a lot of different ways to express these things. That literally directly ties into the next question, which was, were there artists who made you feel it was okay to talk about emotions and mental health? Well, yeah, they were definitely some big ones. Next, I was also about to get into, before I even saw the question, do you have any lyrics that pertain to mental health, coping, etc.? Yes, I absolutely do. I was going to get into the fact that my band Through These Eyes is a very personal thing for me as well. Our debut record, Perception of Reality, is very based around the concept of dealing with day-to-day and mental struggles and perception or like a difficult perception of reality from yourself, or what reality perceives you as. Now, my stuff is also kind of told through the lens of a story, but not exactly a like fully detailed story with characters. It's more so like things that I've dealt with told through the perspective of somebody that deeply struggles with how society perceives them and their perception of what society is, how messed up it is, how difficult it is to exist in society and feel normal around people and society in general, and so many other things specifically related to also like the expectations. In our song Tomorrow Tomorrow, there's the line, expectations are poison, what's the resolution? Is very much written through the lens of someone that feels burdened and weighed down by the pressures that either parents, society at your world is crumbling down, and you still have to continue your day-to-day activities, you still have to work, you still have to do all these different things, and you still have to maintain social relations, you still have to feel like you have to be perfect every day. Sometimes it just feels like there's pressures coming in every direction in society, and that's definitely something that I talk a lot in a big way about. And so finally we have, how did the Mother's Day event that I've been putting on for the past 2 years and the connection with the Daniel Carl Torsch Foundation come about? And on top of that, how have our audience and fans received it? So I met Austin Torsch, one of the founders and very critical members of the Torch Foundation, when I started going to DIY hardcore shows back in, I want to say 2017, 2018. His shows were some of the first like small local Baltimore shows that I actually went to. So meeting him and meeting some of the people that I met through his scene, people like Trey Savage from the band Deep Rest and now Dare to Live, was very integral for me. People like Trey were very inviting and supportive and kind to me coming into a scene where it felt like a lot of times things could be, pretty scary or intense. But meeting Austin back then and going through his shows, he actually booked Prison one of those times, as a good connection to something that I said. And I found out about Austin's foundation through his organization of the festival Mosh Against Addiction, which had a totally cool, hardcore, but also worked in a big way to create even more attention and exposure for the work doing for people that didn't really know the work that he and his family were doing, which is harm reduction related, which is something very important for our city. There's a lot of people that deeply struggle with addiction in our city. And there's a lot of struggle throughout the country in general with people that are passing and all different types of new strains of things that are coming into the streets. Like things are getting almost as deadly as ever. And it's critically important to have programs that focus on harm reduction like his people do, which, does things like set up a lot of organization and outreach events to do things like distribute Narcan and testing strips to people that desperately need it, and help people find resources that are homeless and struggling with addiction, help people find resources for rehab and all this different type of stuff. This is very, very crucial for a community that often feels completely ostracized from society. Now, later down the line in 2021, I actually also unfortunately ended up losing my mother. Maybe not necessarily to an addiction issue, but it's very arguable, regardless, my mother ended up passing from an overdose. Something that was very, very difficult for me, very, very difficult to cope with. And even before then, I had a very big empathy in me for people that were in the grips and struggles of addiction, because it's something, growing up in South Baltimore like I have most of my life, I experienced and witnessed so many different things towards people's struggles with use and addiction, whether it be family members, people in my community, to people, selling drugs right out front of some of my childhood homes and schools and all different types of things. I grew up around a lot of addiction and use, and it's something that was very, very influential in my growth to be a very empathetic person, to want to create a more positive mindset and help towards these issues. And then losing my mother in the way that I did only motivated me even more to do something personally, as and raise awareness to an extent as much as I could, to help people hopefully avoid something similar, because I would never want anybody to experience the deep struggle that losing a loved one to the grips of addiction or just accidental overuse or whatever the case may be, leads to. Which also is, Austin's family foundation is named and was founded after the loss of someone very, very, deep and personal to them as well. I'm pretty sure Austin's brother was Daniel Carl Torsch, who passed away from very similar circumstances, I think upwards of 10 years ago now, and they've been putting in significant work in the community ever since then. And seeing them put in that significant work after meeting Austin back then is something I was always inspired by. And knowing that I ended up losing my mother to it, I put on a Mother's Day show with the hardcore scene last year on the actual Mother's Day, and we had like a good 30-40 people in there, had a really good time, helped raise a little bit of awareness, I'm sure, for the things that everybody was talking about through the night. But when I started organizing the round two this year, I thought, if I'm doing this in memoriam essentially of my mother and other else that has lost parents or family in circumstances, and I do something more than a show. So with my knowledge of Austin and his family's foundation doing all these cool things for all these years, I was like, you know, it would probably be a really smart thing to reach out to him. So I went out of my way to reach out to him, and he was immediately very interested in the idea and very appreciative of me reaching out. I never thought about how significant doing something like this could potentially be, but knowing that I was having the knowledge of working with someone that I know is doing the right things felt very great for me. So I offered, him to come out to our show and set up a little booth with his information and resources. And him and his team were, very excited about this idea. And, I was like of the mindset that, like, even if it somehow helps even one person, that would be amazing. That would be super awesome for me, even with just knowledge, but the knowledge that, the resources that he could, help with as well could potentially help someone experiencing an overdose. Like, that's super, super significant. So, he set up his booth at our show, and literally by the middle of the show, there's like seven acts. And my band was playing like fifth or sixth, actually, if you say 7 acts. And by the middle of the show, I was already talking to him like, if people aren't coming up to you or noticing or really having these conversations with you, let me know, because maybe I'll have you do a presentation before we go on, or maybe I'll do like a big shout out or something. And he's like, yeah, I'll definitely let you know. And by the time we got to the middle of the show, he's already coming up to me like, yo, like, I've had so many genuine beneficial conversations with people tonight. I've shared a lot of resources. I've shared a lot of info. I've done a good few demonstrations of like scenarios of ways that, you can save people in overdose situations. And very, like, I could not be more grateful that not only was Austin and his team able to set something up like this to support, the positive things that I would like to help accomplish for the community, but that, it was very, very well received by a lot of people that were at the show, by a lot of different people in general. And it seems like through the, response through social media, people that weren't there, the people that felt very great about it. And from Austin himself, it seems like things went very, very well. And I could not be happier to have played a part in that in some way. And I'm very appreciative of Austin and his team for working with us in the first place. I'm also very appreciative of you guys, Speak Your Truth, for coming out and being nice and supportive to me and my band in general as well, and talking to me about mental health issues and, making things more than just shows, and, continuing this idea that, we should be building and growing as a community together. And I appreciate the opportunity to have me speak on you guys' platform. Yeah, thanks for everything, and I hope everything goes super, super well. Thanks.